Today I want to talk about what a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is, when you should do it, and how long it stays on your credit report. So stay tuned. My name is Jay, and welcome to Ask a Debt Collector. I've been in the debt collection industry for over 15 years. During the last 8 years, I've been the go-to guy for friends and family for questions about debt. Now, I want to be the go-to guy for you. If you have any questions, put them down in the comment. I promise you I'll answer those questions. Let's go. So as we know, we have a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and as well as a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Today, I'm going to talk about Chapter 7 in particular, okay? A Chapter 7 bankruptcy, by definition, and I'm going to actually read it, is also known as a straight or liquidating bankruptcy. It's a type of bankruptcy that can clear away many types of unsecured debt. It's a legal process to help people who are unable to pay their bills, basically. So with the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, when you should file that bankruptcy is typically when you can't pay your unsecured debt. I say unsecured debt because a lot of times in the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you're giving up everything. It basically gives you a clean slate. Let's say you had $20,000 in credit card debt. It became overwhelming. You couldn't actually pay it. It was sent to collections. You got people threatening to sue you. You got people coming after you, calling you all times of the day to get the money. Now, with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, even if you had a judgment and a garnishment where people were garnishing your funds and, obviously trying to sue you or about to sue you or are already currently suing you with regards to unsecured debt, with the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, it completely stops that. Now, me as a collector, there's a few things that we don't want to hear from a consumer, obviously, because that means we're not going to get paid. When they say that they can't pay or they're not going to pay, or if they filed a bankruptcy. But a lot of times with the bankruptcy, one of the two things we ask is, did you file a Chapter 7 or did you file a Chapter 13? Now, Chapter 13, I'm going to do another video and I'll explain what that is in particular. But when they say Chapter 13, we're not that upset. But when they say Chapter 7, a lot of times we're like, oh gosh, 99% of chance we're not going to get the funds from you. Now, with the Chapter 7, the key thing is on your Schedule F, what's all included. When you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, there are two ways that you can actually file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You could either do it on your own, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend because there's a lot of things, unless you're an expert in it, there's a lot of nuances and so forth that you have to do with regards to filing the Chapter 7, or you can get an attorney. And when you get an attorney that specializes in the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, they'll actually be able to go through the steps in which you need to take with regards to doing that. But back to the Schedule F. So on your Schedule F has a list of all the creditors, basically you're not going to be able to pay. And a lot of times, what happens is they pull a copy of your credit report, and everything on your credit report in that Chapter 7 bankruptcy can be included in your Schedule F, so obviously you don't have to pay it anymore. Understand, with the Chapter 7 bankruptcy on your credit report, it'll stay on your credit report from the date that you filed up to 10 years. So creditors can see, obviously, that you filed a bankruptcy. The reality is, once you do that, obviously, if you do apply, you can apply for a brand new car in 6 months after filing a bankruptcy, but you got to understand your interest rate's going to be very high. You could possibly get approved for credit cards and so forth after that time span, but you got to understand the interest rates will be high and your chances of getting approved for an unsecured loan, again, will be slim to nothing, because a Chapter 7 bankruptcy let creditors know that, hey, with unsecured debt, you couldn't pay it. And so chances are, if you get more unsecured debt, if you haven't learned your lesson, you'll end up in the same situation. Once you file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, let's say 5 years after that time span, you get another financial issue and you want to file again. You can't file for another 8 years from that last discharge date, because there's two things that happens when you try and file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. You file the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and once you go to court, either a judge will grant your Chapter 7 bankruptcy to discharge it, or they'll dismiss it. And a lot of times they're pending. So obviously it's pending because you're waiting to see, what the judgment is going to be with regards to relieving you with the Chapter 7. If it's dismissed, that means that the judge said no for whatever reason, predicated on the information that was provided. They believe that you're not able to get a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And then if it's discharged, that means that you were actually approved for that Chapter 7 bankruptcy. With a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, there are ways that you can protect your property as well as a car if you had a car. And these are considered obviously secured debt. So unsecured debt is debt that is given to you and there's nothing to back it. So when you go and get a credit card and you get a credit card for $3,000, they're just giving that to you based upon your place of employment, your credit score, and your credit history, and so forth. When you get a car, then it's a secure asset with regards to what it is you buy. So you go, you get a loan for $10,000 for, let's say, a Honda Civic. If you default on your payments, the creditor that allowed you to borrow that $10,000 still has an asset. So they have a car, and typically you'll have to surrender it. So in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, typically you'll have to surrender your car, you'll have to surrender your house. But don't quote me on this. Obviously, I'm not an attorney. Get an attorney. I know that there are ways in which people are able to keep their cars, and depending on a few rules. And sometimes people think, oh, if I file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you forfeit everything. And the reality is you do for the most part, but there are some assets that you're able to keep, barring the laws in your state and what it is you can do. So get an attorney for that. Chapter 7 bankruptcy can be a great thing with regards to a consumer. Obviously, if you have so much debt, you find yourself drowning, you've gotten into too much debt, and you need a clean slate to start all over. Chapter 7 bankruptcies aren't given to everyone because it's predicated. They look at like 6 months bank statements. They want to look at your place of employment. They want to look at your assets versus your liabilities. And then they come to a determination with regards to whether or not you can get approved. A lot of times when you have an attorney, especially that specializes in bankruptcies, they can look at your information and pretty much tell you, if in fact they believe you'll get approved for your Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, the reality is I hope that none of you guys have to go through a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. It gives you a clean slate. If you have any questions regarding credit or debt, put them down in the comment section. I promise I'll answer those questions. And as I always say, you guys be great.